You guys ready to go on this journey? We're gonna find out about Angie. I want you to watch this piece go through the challenges. It's not gonna be easy, but she's gonna triumph, persevere, and build a character. She was the first person that ordered one of the Deafblind Potter custom pieces. If you remember, right after I went viral for the first time, her piece that she has is the one with the seashells. When I interviewed her, immediately we connected, and immediately I realized this lady and we could help so many people. So I'm super excited to introduce you to Angela Ulloa. Angela, welcome to the Perseverance Podcast.
It's been amazing to talk to you and prepare for this. I'm excited too.
One thing which struck me and hits home for me deeply, you talked about your adopted mom, and I'm like, wait. I mean, you've been adopted? I want to know that story.
Okay. My birth mother was a teenager when she had me. She really did try to be a mom, but I don't think she understood where to put her stress. A lot of times she would put her stress into us kids. I became a parentified child, and the only way for me to feel like I had control was to make sure her stress came out on me, not my sisters. They were just so little and I was older, so I just didn't want them to be a part of it. There was a breaking point where my dad realized that I was telling the truth and my mom was lying, and things got really rough until they finally got a divorce. And then we were kidnapped by our birth mother and we were taken to New York. We were homeless, living in a car, and then a very nice man happened to come by and ask us if we wanted or needed a place to live. My mom said yes, so we went and lived in a stranger's house until she got enough money to get us into a real home. After that, we were riding in a car and my mom was really mad and she turned around to smack one of the kids and she accidentally hit the gas and rear-ended Monte Carlo. She ended up going into the windshield and getting a ton of stitches in her forehead, but she said her real name in that moment. She said who she was, and the police recognized her name and actually handcuffed her to her bed.
Oh boy.
We were taken by the state. I mean, this was late 80s, early 90s. I don't know the year exactly. And my dad, he doesn't have a cell phone. And he's been going from place to place, just trying to find us, figure out where we're at, because he knows the situation isn't good. It took a while for the government to find my dad to tell him where we were. So we actually went into foster care. And while we were in foster care, we went to a lovely Black lady's home. She was probably one of the most amazing, sweetest people I have ever met or could meet. To contrast, her husband hated white people.
Oh boy.
So he actually brought a gun home one night and was going to kill the white devils in his house. And her kids hid us. She got him to leave the house and he didn't come back for the rest of our stay. My dad finally came to the house with a psychologist and my grandparents because they wanted to make sure we would transition back with our dad okay. And I was so mad at my dad for taking too long to find us. That's little kid mentality, right? Mm-hmm. That I just didn't want to talk to him. I didn't know that one of the things a psychologist was looking for was to see us interact with our dad. Then we were going to be a ward to the state. And it was literally like 2 or 3 minutes before time was up and I was going to go to the state because my sisters had all reacted to my father and I was still angry. My dad said, you should respect the people around you. You don't have to love them or like them, but your parents did give birth to you, so they deserve a little bit of respect. And I got up and I hugged my dad, and that saved me. And my dad said he's never sweat so hard in his life. Ended up moving back to California. The state constitution actually had to be modified. My mom has a mental health disorder, but it was enough for the government to say we need to change the laws so this man can take custody of these kids. And at this point, my mom had gone to jail for kidnapping. They really were trying to not let us go back with her. My dad was finally awarded full custody. It was, 3 years of fighting, trying to let my dad take 4 girls. It was not easy. It was very difficult. Got the laws changed enough that my dad could get custody, and the judge asked my dad where he had family. And my dad says, well, I've got family in Iowa. And the judge says, it is time for you to go back to Iowa. They have harder custody laws, and now that you've been granted full custody, you need to move. So we moved. When I was a little kid, my dad used to work on a car at these really nice people's house. They used to let me sit at the counter and eat ice cream. My dad's working on cars, and here I am getting to have this wonderful time with this lady. And she always talked about her beautiful daughter. Several years later, that woman has gone to college. She has a career. She comes back on vacation, and my father thought she was just gorgeous. And I guess she thought my dad was good looking too. Lo and behold, her best friend is actually cousins to my dad. She was like, well, I can set you up. She'd felt bad for this man that she'd met with the 4 daughters, trying to just make ends meet. I think they were only dating 2 weeks when my dad asked if he could marry her. And he asked us girls in front of what would become my mom. We all said yes. At the time, I didn't realize how bad of a struggle that was going to be for me, because again, I was a parentified child. I wasn't used to having a mom figure. I was used to making sandwiches for my sisters. I was so depressed, so messed up. I didn't know what to think of women. I treated her like garbage for probably 5 years before I had my first real moment of enlightenment. This is what a mom is like, and I've been taking it for granted, and it felt horrible. And we've been able to talk to each other. In the first year of marriage, she was honestly afraid that I was going to start a coup and we were going to murder her in her sleep. I totally get it. And I told her, I was like, no, I really loved you. I really trusted you. I didn't know how to define myself anymore. I didn't know who I was. Mm-hmm. How was I supposed to really allow somebody else in? And her perseverance with me really, really changed everything. And she said, one day I just came home and all of a sudden I was her daughter, and she could have cried. I call her my adopted mom because she went to every track meet that she could. She got me tennis lessons. Things changed so much when she became my mom. I started making friends, and my clothes were pretty. Sometimes my birth mother would buy me clothes that weren't so nice. I would be too afraid to ask for anything different, so that could have been my fault too. I don't want to come down hard on my birth mother. She had a lot of struggles of her own. It just impacted children really negatively. It occurred to me one day that my birth mom kind of gave me a shovel and told me to dig. And I just started digging. I didn't know why I was digging. I just started digging. And my adopted mom came along and she started pushing dirt back in the hole. My mom had finally gotten the level of dirt back in my hole deep enough that over time, eventually my husband could reach my hand and pull me out of the hole. My adopted mom, if she doesn't like something I do, like let's say I dye my hair purple, she'll look at me and go, oh, that's adventurous. Because she doesn't want to tell me it was a bad choice, but she'll love me through it and try to understand where I'm coming from. And that means the world to me.
Well, it sounds like your adopted mom is very much like my wife. Filling in the hole. I mean, that's what we're doing with my current foster son. I'm just trying to be there for him. But my wife, every night, she just leans on the bed with him and scratches his back and tells him it's going to be okay. He screams at her and says, I hate you, I hate you. She says, I love you.
I really didn't understand what I had with my adopted mom. She told me, you can call me mom, you can call me Stacia, you can call me whatever you want. Just please don't call me stepmom, because I don't want to be the stepmother in the fairy tales.
Yeah.
I want to be something different. I can be just your friend. And she said, I will never be able to replace your mom. And that was really nice that she could be honest like that. And I never want to disrespect my birth mother in her position, and I do hope at some point she is healed. and we can reconcile. I haven't had that point happen in my life, and I've had to separate myself from her and distance myself from my own mental health. My adopted mom, she is my world. I call her a lot. I call her more than my dad. And I know that sounds awful, but she's my mom.
And rightly so. I never understood the power of a mom until being a foster parent. We've had our foster son for 300 days. My wife is an amazing woman. And watching her love our son, you talk about a mom. I don't have that in me, but he's realizing it's still not easy for him. It just warms my heart to know your adopted mom persevered.
And she is such a God-fearing woman. I can't even imagine how many times she must have cried or prayed over nastiness that I was giving her. I was so bad that at one point my dad actually considered giving me up for adoption to my grandparents, because for some reason my grandparents could always reach me.
Let's continue this journey. This is the first step in this piece. Coming into adulthood. What happened during that time?
It was a very confusing time of life for me. I didn't have my birth mom readily available, and I had this other woman that I was struggling to really understand and create this relationship with. And I was doing things like needing to learn to shave my leg, learning how to put on makeup, and I really didn't trust anyone. It was a very hard time. I was kind of socially different. I'd gone through so much as a child. I was more grown up than most of the people in my class. So when they would have issues like their boyfriend dumped them, in my head it was like, you were saved going through several years of disappointment. You got to move forward in life and find somebody who really will love you. You're not stuck there. So I spent a lot of my time surrounded by people, but still feeling kind of alone. I decided that because my adopted mom spoke Spanish and she was a missionary, it would be a good idea to kind of follow in her footsteps, because those were the only real footsteps that I knew on how to be a woman. So I worked really hard. I graduated high school in 3 years, and then I went on a foreign exchange for my senior year, and I didn't have to worry about whether I was going to graduate or not. I was already graduated in the US, but I got to attend high school in Spain with no worries that I wouldn't get my diploma. My adopted mom helped me learn how to save money, and I actually sent myself there. I paid for my plane ticket round trip, and I paid for the medical insurance in the country, and that was such a good moment in my life. There were some bad things that did happen in Spain. I believe it was cultural. I was assaulted, but I'm not sure if I said something wrong, and I've been told all women feel that way. They said something wrong or did something wrong, even in their own language. What could they have done different? And it was at a church group. That really rocked my world for a long time. I was doing everything right. I was being uber modest, wearing the clothes the way you're supposed to wear them, and I ended up assaulted. I just decided that if being modest wasn't going to save me, then why would I be modest? Why would I care about a God that didn't protect me when I was at church? It was really hard. So it felt like I got on my feet and then I got smashed down again. I had a friend who was very defensive of me, and I ended up marrying him because I felt protected, and he really didn't push me hard to kiss him, and I just felt like he was being respectful, and this person was maybe sent from God to help me heal. When we got married, he changed completely. When he found out I was pregnant, he actually told me that I could get a drug in Europe and I could miscarry the child and we'd never have to have a child. I told him I wasn't going to do that. I would just go back and live with my family. I would be a single mom and raise this child on my own. And he said, well, I can't do that. I don't believe my children not being where I can't be their father. And I thought we were just on the same page. And then I had a horrendous miscarriage. About 6 weeks later, I had another miscarriage. I didn't understand why I was having miscarriages. When I was a little kid, I was molested. And I was told that the damage was so bad that I would never be able to have kids. Part of me just thought, maybe I can't have children. My husband at the time ended up being so kind of emotionally abusive and cold. One time, I was 12 weeks along. I took out all the baby clothes and put them around me, and I was trying to allow myself to grieve because I was so excited about having that baby that we bought all this stuff and then there was no baby. And my ex-husband came home and he yelled at me and told me I needed to be over it. It had only happened a couple months ago. It was still very, very new, and anybody who's had a miscarriage knows that it is a process of healing. It does not happen overnight. And I thought his reaction was very odd, but I just attributed it to his grieving being different than mine. And then he thought about going in the military, and I thought, well, maybe he'll realize that I love him and I'm trying to do the right thing for our marriage. If he goes through basic and gets knocked down a little bit, goes through AIT, gets some of that structure. We both joined the military together. We were separated for almost a year. So we went from being married a few months, having those miscarriages, and then we're in the military. 9/11 had happened, and that was a huge motivator for me as well. I just wanted to do the right thing for my country. It just felt like that was my new path in life. I really enjoyed the structure. Like I said, my ex-husband wasn't there. I was pretty stress-free. Everything was going really well. And then my ex-husband caught up with me in Germany, and we moved in together, and I ended up pregnant again. I was pretty far along and I had another miscarriage. I almost died on the table. I think I just had given up. When I woke up, the doctor were screaming at me in German, and I don't know what's going on. They finally get somebody in who can translate and tell me what happened. I did notice that I was 3.5 hours late from surgery. When the baby died, my body didn't miscarry it properly, so I had to have it removed. That was a really low point for me. He said that I was just hemorrhaging out and dying on the table. All of a sudden, I started fighting again. They don't even know why I should have died. I honestly think God told me in that moment, there's something coming for you. There's something better. That's why I started fighting again. I realized I was really depressed because one day, driving to work, I wanted to drive myself into a bridge. I've been through a lot of therapy in my life because of some of the stuff that happened in my youth, and I recognized that as a suicidal thought. I knew there was a sergeant that lived near where I lived, and I just asked him if he could give me a ride every day to work and back because I didn't trust myself to drive anymore. I did go into marriage counseling at that point. I didn't understand why things were so bad. My ex-husband was warm to me at first when he got to Germany, but he was starting to get cold again. I found out that he was having some identity issues of his own. Got a notice that I was going to be deployed to Afghanistan. The second my boots hit ground in Afghanistan, my ex-husband asked for the divorce. I signed the papers and I was rid of it, ready to start a new chapter in my life. While I was there, there's not a whole lot to do. You can play cards with your friends. You've got your missions that you run, but you need to have ways of decompressing because some of the stuff that happens while you're there is so challenging. I would sometimes pick up magazines and the headline caught my attention. It said, "The abortion drug from Europe is illegal in the United States because it causes hemorrhaging." And that's when I finally put 2 to 2 together. That's why he didn't need to grieve and why I was so upset. And he didn't want to have kids. He found a way to get rid of them. To me, what he did is murder. He took those people away from me. And that doesn't mean I judge other women in other situations. My heart goes out to them. And I know the feelings of pure terror while you wait to find out if you're pregnant or try to figure out how you're going to love something that came out of a bad situation. For me, those were my kids and he took their lives. At this point, I'd started kind of becoming antisocial again. It was just another jab by God in my life. I was doing everything I was supposed to do according to my religious background, and I was following the rules. I was still experiencing trauma. I was not ready for anything. Several months later, after I'd been deployed, my current husband walked in the door of my office like he owned my office. I knew the second he walked in my office, I could have nothing to do with him because there are rules in the military around on dating and how that has to happen. I knew he was a player, he was very good looking, and he would be right in my weak spot. I literally did all kinds of stuff to ignore him. I'd actually been working a lot of hours. My chain of command, I kind of complained to them because I was exhausted, and I said I need help with some of these locations, and one of the locations was my husband's. Well, what we'll do is we'll pull somebody from that unit to help you. Guess who it was? So now I'm gonna have to talk to him, right? Like this person that I've been trying to avoid like the plague because I obviously have a weak spot is now going to be working for me. And I still found ways to keep it very casual. One day, my ex-husband had figured out what the phone number was to where I was at, and he called me to yell and scream at me on the phone about what a horrible person I was. I kind of got underneath my desk and I pulled the chair in and I just cried. That way I could hear the monitor going off. I could still be doing my job. I didn't want the other soldiers to see my face all puffy red. Came out from underneath the table and a sergeant was sitting in the chair waiting for me to come out, and he goes, "What happened?" So I told him, and in the military, you can get an order done without it being formal. So he contacted the chain of command for my ex-husband and basically put a cease and desist in place. So that way I couldn't be harassed by him anymore. He said, "Don't ever be weak like that again." It really helped him to say that. And he didn't mean it in a demeaning way. He was really trying to empower me. It felt like he was saying, "Don't give that man the power." On my way to the hut that I slept in, there was a guy walking down the road. He was like, "Hey baby, how you doing?" Man, I lit that guy up like the 4th of July. I just got yelled at, and then I got empowered by a sergeant, and then I'm not letting one more person speak to me in a disrespectful way. It's not gonna happen. So I walked off, I slammed the door of the hut just to be an exclamation mark. And the next day I went to work and my husband's sitting there and he goes, "Wow, some psycho woman just yelled and screamed at my friend." And he goes, "He said, 'Hey baby, how you doing?' But he says that to everybody." And that's when I realized I'd made a mistake. And that was the first time that I kind of lowered my wall a little bit. The only reason why I came clean was because he was going to find out that I was the person that screamed at his friend. I told him, "Just tell your friend I'm sorry." And I told him about being yelled at the day before by my ex-husband. So I said, "Can you please just apologize to your friend for me? I really am sorry. That was not my best day." And this guy looks at me and goes, "You're gonna have to do that yourself. We all play cards at night. Why don't you come play cards and tell him yourself?" Turns out he didn't know how to play the game of cards that they were playing that night, so he actually learned how to play before I got there, so he could be my partner and teach me how to play. I really just needed a friend. I didn't need a boyfriend. I didn't need to start all that. We just started talking, but it was more like when you don't believe a relationship's going to happen, you're just going to be around that person for the moment and they'll be gone. So you can tell them whatever you want. So I kind of just started talking about the trauma from my childhood. I started talking about the things that happened with my ex-husband. I told him about everything. He told me about his girlfriends. I was right. He was a player. One day I was really stressed out and I'd had a communication system go down. It was down for almost 48 hours before I figured out they changed satellites on us without telling us. And it took me a while to figure that out and to get everything going because I'm going through the entire system making sure there's not an error. We're just going to have to put somebody on the roof and have them move around the dish until hopefully we get something. We're looking for a satellite in the sky. That's a big place. Just a ping. And all of a sudden it pinged. We were in the right spot. Now I need you to just move it even smaller movements until we get it to turn green. Finally it went green. Everything went live again. But it was literally about 48 hours of me sitting at the computer, people bringing me food in while I'm just going through this. And I came to sit with everybody playing cards, and Joe looked up at me and he said, "You know, you look really stressed. You told me that when you were stressed in high school, your adopted mom and you used to go for walks. Let's go for a walk. This guy could be my friend. This guy could be more than what he appears to me." And we finally got to the point where I told him about, he looked at me and he said, "You are not defined by your trauma. You're defined by what you're doing now." And it felt like I'd had this black jacket on my whole life, just kind of hiding because I don't want people to see my trauma. I don't want them to see my brokenness. I don't want them to worry about me because I will be fine. I will take care of you. You will never have to take care of me. My husband was like, just take the jacket off. And I'm like, no, I'm comfortable with this jacket. This jacket is mine. And he's like, no, you really need to take the jacket off. And I took the jacket off and I found out I actually had these beautiful wings. I could fly too. I can be somebody. Somebody can love me even though I've been through so much pain. And we just kept getting closer. He said he realized he was in love with me July 4th. I was actually in a parade. We took pieces of cardboard and pallet and rigged up a parade. So one of our friends had cutouts and looked like the Statue of Liberty. We had black shirts because you get black shirts when you deploy. So we all put on our sunglasses and we grabbed wires and then we wired ourselves up like we were Secret Service. That was our float. And there were other ones too. And at one point, the lieutenant and we had picked out someone in the crowd that we were going to tackle. She's another soldier that we're really good friends with. We went and we tackled her down to the ground, called a security problem, and we had to isolate the security problem because it was going to hurt the Statue of Liberty, and we threw her down on the ground. In that moment of us just being crazy and funny and finding a way to have a mental break in the midst of all the chaos that's happening, Joe was watching me and he was like, yeah, that's the one. I'm gonna marry her. And mind you, I'm still in friend zone. One of his friends came up to me and, you need to give Joe a chance. And I was like, okay, number one, we're deployed. Number two, I'm not gonna be queen for a year. And number three, we're deployed. There's no question. He talks about me a lot because we hang out together. So he's gonna end up talking about me a little bit, at least. And he's like, no. He's really into you. And that evening, when we were walking around and talking, Joe goes, have you ever thought about getting married again? And I did not pick up what he was putting down. I was so blind. I looked at him and said, my first marriage was really rough. I don't think I would ever do that again. I don't know, maybe sometime in the future something, but like I'm not in that place. I had no idea I was telling my best friend in the whole wide world that I didn't ever want to get married. And I didn't realize what I was doing, but when he said that, something happened in my brain where I was like, maybe. Afterwards, it took me a few days, but it would be nice to be married to somebody who is my best friend, somebody who would champion things that I want to do with my life and who does understand me fully. I didn't realize that was a setup to even have a chance with me. Like, I didn't realize that's what he was doing there. One day I caught myself after work looking at wedding dresses. I wonder what it would be like to be married to your friend. And at this point, our chain of commands were getting anxious about us. We were kind of separated to different locations, but we continued to just call and talk to each other every day, just about whatever had happened. It's easier to talk to somebody in the service because they're not going to ask questions like, what did you do today? I can't tell you that. Instead, they'll ask you questions like, what's your favorite food? What are you going to eat when you're on leave? What are you going to do when you're on leave? What was your childhood like? You get into those questions instead. It was just nice to have somebody I could talk to and just be myself and just relax. In about November, we were talking on the phone and I told a nerd joke. I'm sorry, I'm a nerd. Off of that nerd joke, and I remember it was an incredible nerd joke, he was laughing and all of a sudden he goes, will you marry me? I said, what did you just say to me? And he goes, ha, I was just kidding. And he starts laughing. So then in December, he asks me again, will you marry me? And I said, you just can't play with words like that. Because at this point, I don't think he could have done it another way because to me, we were friends. It was almost like he was just planting the seed. We could be something else in my head. He got really quiet, so I knew he was serious. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. Well, I'll say yes conditionally. Number one, we have to date. We've never dated. You've been my friend, and my standard for friends is pretty low. Just because I believe everybody needs love and support and kindness. My standard for my husband is, so we're gonna have to approach this differently in the future. Number two, you have to ask my dad. And number three, you have to ask me again so I know you didn't get sick of me while we were dating. So a month later, he got the church, he'd asked my father, and we still hadn't actually dated. So he did number 2. I thought it was going to go 1, 2, 3. Okay, well, I'll knock out number 2, and then we'll get to 1, and then we'll do 3. I think at that point I was definitely in love with him, but I could not say that to myself. Those words were very scary. Finally, in May, we were in an appropriate position to kind of start officially dating. So we started dating, and it was so much fun. He actually asked me to marry him again on the first date. So
Did you say yes?
I did, because he was so scared. When he put the ring on the table and he opened the box and he just slid it towards me. And I was like, I'm a monster. What have I done to this guy? I wasn't comfortable with telling myself that I loved him yet. This is somebody I care for really deeply, and he can't even say the words. So I just waited. I just waited patiently for him to say, will you marry me? And of course I said yes. Good, because I already have a church, and I knew he'd already asked my father. Okay, well, this is it. So now I'm engaged. About a month later, he asked me to just elope with him in Vegas. And I'm like, we have a wedding set up and a church, and why would we just go elope in Vegas? And he's like, well, I just want to be married already. I get that, and then I called my dad, and I was like, Dad, I don't know what to do. I'm so scared of getting married again. I'm so scared. I'm afraid of being happy. And I'm finally with somebody who loves me and cherishes me, and I don't want to ruin anything. And my dad said, honey, he's your guy. You guys are going to be married for a very long time. He can wait a few months. Okay, but if I say no, it's probably going to break his heart. And I said, he goes, honey, he may not talk to you for a few days, but he will come back. He loves you. So I told my husband that I did not want to elope in Vegas. And sure enough, he was so mad he didn't talk to me for a few days, but just like my dad said, he came back. It was just amazing to be loved that much. I could say no a million times over again, and the man just keeps getting up and just keeps getting beat down by me. That poor guy. One time I asked him, why me? And he said, because you were the first person to say no. You were the first person to have your standards, and I needed that in my life. Wow. So me being afraid and concerned actually was what he needed. You needed to see that somebody was serious about this, not just running in it. Wasn't too long after that I got pregnant with our first child. I was stationed in Germany, and it's not easy to get married in Germany. It can be done, but we wanted to be married in the United States around all of our friends and all of that, so the timing had to be just right. AJ is the best thing that ever happened, and I had no problems with this pregnancy. I actually went into the OBGYN when I found out that I was pregnant, and I was terrified. I was like, look, I've lost all these kids. I suspect my ex-husband was involved, but I don't know. And I was also told I couldn't have kids. I was like, I really need you to check me. And he checked, and I said, so what is the prognosis? What do I have to do to be able to carry this baby? The doctor was like, you have no scar tissue. I couldn't even tell, based off what I'm seeing, that you even have a trauma history like that. I was going to be able to have a baby. I was still scared. I was terrified. I gained a lot of weight because I did not deny myself anything, because I was too afraid that if I did, it would be a nutrient the child needed. He was born healthy and such a good baby. He was like the perfect child. He made me think that maybe I should have more kids. So I got pregnant with our second child. After my first child, I had started feeling my body getting weak. And it started before I got pregnant with AJ. It actually started while I was deployed. I didn't realize at the time that this was going to be something chronic or something that got worse. I honestly thought it was going to be something that I could do physical therapy, see a chiropractor, do a nutritionalist, and get everything in line, and I'd be okay. I took a break from thinking about all of that to make sure that my son was going to be born healthy. As soon as he was born, I got into making sure I was dieting right. I saw a dietitian. I even had my caloric intake calculated to make sure I was doing, like I said, everything right for my body to get back on track. But the pain just got worse. I got pregnant again. My kids are 2 years apart, so I didn't feel like I had enough time to figure out what was really going on with my body. And then when I got pregnant with Danny, it was wonderful. Here I am again, having another perfect baby. What I didn't realize is the little bruiser was going to come out the way he was in my tummy. That little boy is all energy, all bounce, and he wore a mother out. My 2 kids are fire and ice. If they're working together, if they're on the same page, man, the world can't stop them. But if they don't agree, it is war. It's such a huge blessing to have those boys. And I was also going to college, and my body continued to feel worse. And I attribute it to nursing because I fall asleep sometimes sitting up. So I thought, it's just pregnancy. I'll do all the things again. So again, I went to the chiropractor, went to nutritionalist, did all the things, and my neck got better. Some of the postural things got better, but my body continued to not feel right. My skin, when I got out of the shower, would feel like it was on fire. And I'd always had kind of an itching to my skin after I took a shower, but it had definitely leveled up significantly.
So you're over there, you're cross-trained, you got all these experiences. Something was happening in the environment that nobody knew about, or did they?
They did. That's the crazy thing. We actually have government documents that state that we can be deployed there if we have appropriate gear because of the toxin level.
Are you allowed to disclose the base?
Yes, I am. The base is Karshi-Kanabad in Uzbekistan, and it used to be a Soviet Union arms decommissioning site. So every weapon that needs to be decommissioned goes there. They actually had a nuclear explosion on site in 1989, if I have that fact correct. There's radiation on that base. With the testing, they found arsenic in the water and cyanide and mustard gas and blistered gas, nerve gas. A white gas came out into the tent and everybody fled the tent. And then people in hazmat suits had to go into the tent and pull everything out, and they had to sleep in a different spot because whatever came out of the ground was so bad. Units, when they got home, would be told they had to throw away all of their stuff. They'd be reissued all brand new, which almost never happens. Like the military, if you lost something, if you damaged something, that's it, you have to go replace it. But this was such a broad sweep that entire units had to throw away all of their gear.
So to help us, you're going through this emotional struggle, you're slowly falling in love.
While my body's starting to fall apart, yes. Yeah, we had a burn pit too. There were actually massive signs, and they would say, don't go beyond this point, chemical hazard, or don't go over here, radiation hazard. Some units had been told that they couldn't dig more than a certain amount of inches because the US had come in and brought a ton of dirt and laid it down on top of the ground to try to contain the radiation. But in my head, we're in a country that has sandstorms. What is putting dirt on top of something going to do for something that's been blowing around all over the place? But it feels like a joke. There are PT trails that are behind the fence where it says chemical exposure. We find a nuclear bomb. My unit had to bring in people to remove. There's so much evidence of toxins everywhere. There's no way my country would send me here. And maybe it was this way 20 years ago, but now it's fine. There was like a pool of water that would turn black and go to orange and then be this eerie green color, which I have found is how uranium reacts with water. And I stayed away from that. Anything that changes those kinds of colors, I'm not getting close to that.
Your husband's on there, you were on there.
Yes.
How many people have died from this situation?
The first death was only 9 months after the soldier got back home. He collapsed in formation and things just went downhill from there. I believe we have found 60 dead since we've started digging. There are over 15,000 of us. We've only found 5,000 of the soldiers, though. There are people we cannot find or cannot get in contact with. So we don't know if our death rates are higher, but from the people that we've been able to contact, 75% of us are chronically ill, and we're 6 times more likely to get cancers.
How is your husband holding up with it?
He wasn't there as long as I was. I got there late January, and he didn't get there until mid-April. And then I believe he left sometime in August. And I was there almost an entire year. We think that has played into this. I also talked to medical people that have told me because I got pregnant, that lowered my immune system because I was pushing my immunity to my children. And that actually caused me to progress quicker than I normally would have. And I did notice that. And in the back of my mind the whole time, you saw the signs at K2. I was in touch with other people from my unit, and nobody ever seemed to complain about pain or about skin, the memory fuzziness. I guess we were just soldiering on.
So now you're living with chronic pain. It's really easy for you to get sick.
Yep.
You're always worried about getting cancer because you just had a test done just recently, right?
Yes, I started having problems swallowing recently. Esophageal cancer, thyroid cancer is one of the things that we get. So I went to the doctor. They actually had to dilate my throat. I do have inflammation in my stomach and my throat now. I am trying to change my diet, hopefully recover, because these things can lead to cancer. If you take care of them earlier, then they have a chance of not getting there. So that's what I'm hoping for. Back when I had my kids, I didn't know. And I started college. The pain started getting even worse. Towards graduation, I started feeling lightheaded at times. Finally, one day, I full-blown got dizzy. I couldn't change what I was doing because if I would have stopped, I would have hurt myself. And it was scary. I called my husband and I told him I didn't know if I was going to make it home. And if I did, I wanted him to know where I was. So that way, if I did go down, he would be able to call the ambulance and tell him where to go get me. I continued doing what I was doing, and my husband and I talked almost the whole time until it finally passed. It was a good 30 minutes. I really thought I was gonna die. That was a really scary moment. So I went to the VA and was told I was crazy because they thought it was PTSD. They put me on the drop table, they spun me around, they did blinky lights, they did all kinds of stuff, and we couldn't find it. I got a diagnosis of Meniere's disease. About a year later, I had been driving to and from work. I noticed that if I sit too long, my legs start feeling like they're burning. At one point, I told Father, I need some kind of relief, or you need to put me out of my misery. Because that day, I'd had a cold, and I had laid enough in bed that the entire side of my body was burning. And no matter how I positioned myself, I could not escape the pain. That day almost broke me. And I remember while I was laying there, my brain just snapped and said, water. I could get in the bathtub. That would even out the pressure across my entire body. I went to the bathtub, I turned the water on, and I got in. And it relaxed my entire body, and I could finally get relief. And I remember I was in the bathtub so long that the water got really cold, and I was actually starting to shiver. I was scared of getting out of the bathtub. I finally decided that the VA where I was going was not helping me. So I drove to a different VA. I didn't even get in the room. The doctor saw me and she goes, "Oh, honey, you're in pain." Hearing somebody validate me like that made me cry. And she goes, "Do you mind if I touch your skin?" And I said, "It's fine, just be careful." And she goes, "I know." She goes, "I think I know what you have." I said, "Okay." And she started touching my skin and she said, "It's everywhere." And I said, "What is?" And she goes, "You have an acute case of fibromyalgia from what I understand of it. There's a webbing that happens underneath the skin and you can feel it. Have you ever noticed that your skin doesn't feel like other people's skin?" And she told me there is a treatment. It's experimental, but it's safe. It's just an alternative method of using a medication that has existed for decades. And I said, "Okay, I'm in." I started taking this over-the-counter medication every day, but it helped a lot. I still have to be careful of the texture of the clothes because it still feels sunburned, but it's not near as bad. But I was still having issues. My feet started hurting. My one foot in particular, I was sparring, doing karate. I kicked and then I went to set myself down and my foot was different. And I assumed that what happened is that I broke something. I sprained something wasn't right. It turns out that was just a catalyst. I went to the VA a couple days later. They took an x-ray. They couldn't find anything. So then they took an MRI. Still couldn't find anything. They did an EEG and tested my nerves. Still can't find anything. But I have pain in my foot. So they're like, well, the problem isn't from here down. It could be that your brain is amplifying these signals like there's something wrong with your nervous system. It never really got the follow through that I think it should have gotten. But we started trying different medications. One of them made me suicidal. One of them made me an angry, horrible person. Finally, we settled on one that does calm that down. And I still have pain. If I take 2,500 steps, I need my cane. I can get further if I start using my cane right away, but sometimes I just want to look normal. About the time I get to 3,500, 4,000, that's when I need 2 canes. If I get much higher than that, I can't get through a grocery store in one fell swoop without either leaning on the grocery cart, which hurts because the cart itself pushing on my arms really hurts, or getting a scooter. And I'll get people that look at me really poorly because I'm on a scooter. I know I'm one of the I look fine people. Sometimes when I park in the DAV spots, people look at me really bad because I also don't look like a veteran. So even though I have a handicap placard, sometimes I'll do things that I know are going to hurt me later, and I won't park in the handicap spot. Just got my heart stuff done. They found my heart arrhythmia that I was talking about. They said it happens every single heartbeat, but if it was going to kill me, it should have at this point. So we're just going to keep an eye on it. I'll be going in to get my heart checked probably every year. My esophagus, they cleared me for several years, but if this changes, I have to go back. Finally, a year and a half ago, I was at work. It was cold out and my body seized up and I fell and I couldn't move because it hurt so bad. Somebody saw me fall down. She tried to help me stand up. I had to grit through it. I finally was able to get up with her help. I asked her if she would be willing to go get my cane. So she went and got my cane, and when she came back, she was like, should I just pull your vehicle into the building? And I said, actually, if you could do that, that would be amazing. And I just waited for my body to calm down a little bit, and then I drove home. By the time I got home, it was so bad, I could not get out of the car by myself. My kids came to the car and I asked them to go get my other cane. I again gritted to stand up out of the car, and I started taking baby steps, just 1 inch at a time, trying to get myself to the door. I just remember thinking to myself, I can't do this anymore. One day I forgot who I was. I had the feeling that I had kids and a husband, but I couldn't remember my name and I couldn't remember their faces. I am not going to be able to be the high-powered engineer that I always wanted to be. I'm going to have to quit my job, and that's going to financially impact me, and it's going to financially impact my family. That was very hard. And because of my trauma and because of my past, I've always had an income. I've always made sure that I had a way to escape or a way to get out. Learning to trust people on a new level has been very difficult for me. And then working with Kelvin, he's given me an opportunity to use my creative engineering brain. So I've been working with him on a cane, and it has been so much fun and so much work. He's been really flexible with me. I really appreciate you, because it does give me a little bit of an income to help me bridge this gap while I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to take care of myself and how I'm going to do this. The other thing that I have been grieving is that I would never be a CEO. I always wanted to climb the corporate ladder. I can't be in the military. If I'm in too much pain to be in the military, maybe I can climb the corporate ladder and find my success that way. And it wasn't until recently that I discovered my own mission statement. I am a CEO. I own my own company. It doesn't have a lot of people, it has me. And I am starting to take those baby steps towards having my own company and doing my own thing. And the other thing that kind of bothered me was I've always wanted to do good with my company. And I felt like my company was really not even able to support me at this point. And one day I was really sick, and it made me think about my other friends that are sick, that are in this similar situation. They're making ends meet, but they don't have a real outlet. What if I take this business to the next level? I could teach people how to make 3D art, people with autism or Down syndrome or chronic pain. I finally found that mission statement where I can help other people. It has been so liberating. I have started advocating for K2 veterans, and I have to rest. Sometimes I can't get out of bed, or have to plan to be in my bed for 2 or 3 days in preparation for a trip. After I have a hard push, then I'll take a few days and recover. It means that I can't work 9 to 5 job, and it's not because I don't want to. That was my absolute desire. Now I'm really starting to embrace where I'm at, and I'm starting to change what that looks like. A couple years ago, I would be in bed right now. I would get home from work and I would be in so much pain. All I could do was sit down on the couch. I couldn't move. Sometimes my husband would have to carry me to bed. There are times when my husband has to put me in the shower and help me take a shower, and he has to put me on the toilet, and he has to help me change my clothes because I can't do it myself. It was actually in a pain moment. I was on my bed, I downloaded TikTok. I started scrolling through stuff, and one of the first videos that comes up is this blind guy making pottery. This is amazing. This is what I've been looking for, is somebody like this, because sometimes when you go to the support groups, I know there are people who are grieving their situation, but I'm at the point where I'm starting to become mobilized. I was looking for those people who are ready to move forward. So when I saw you totally moving forward, doing pottery, I understand how difficult it can be as a seeing person. And I was like, wow, it's such a novel idea. And to see you was amazing. I just had to commission a piece where you did whatever you wanted.
If you guys don't know, when I was asking for a manufacturer, somebody to help me finish this lighted blind cane, and I reached out to a bunch of different people, and I thought, let me just give you a call. And next thing you know, you're giving me more than 16 hours of battery life on my cane, and you got a vibration motor on it, you got it collapsible, and now here we are. The amount of lives you and I are going to save from getting hit by a car that is thinking about suicide.
Yeah.
Somebody that's struggling with their trauma.
Yeah.
Truly, you are a beautiful example of taking trauma in life and putting joy right in front of it. Just recently, you just lost 2 loved ones in 24 hours.
We literally were coming out of her memorial service, and I saw my dad was calling, and I knew Grandpa was sick. And I answered the phone, and sure enough, my grandpa had passed away. This last month has been so draining.
You keep trying, and we're gonna get there.
We will, and you can't do it alone. And I am fiercely independent, and learning to allow people to help me has been a very hard lesson to learn. Some people really do want to help, and that gives them a sense of control in the situation, and that's actually how we can help our family members feel like they're a part of our lives and feel important. Forcing my husband to just watch me struggle alone is incredibly painful for him.
Oh, yeah.
Because he feels powerless. But allowing him to say, hey, I could really use help taking a shower today, that actually gives him a sense of control. There are moments when you can let people step in and help.
Yeah.
Isn't God like that though?
Yeah.
And sometimes we really just have to let go when God shows us a new path, and it's been worth it.
Well, I think as we tell your story, I'm just excited for the journey.
Me too.
We know how to persevere.
Yes.
And we know how to build a character that has hope in Christ. As we wrap this up, I want you all to remember, do not compare your pain to somebody else's. Look at the pain and ask yourself the question, how do I have joy in it? But don't stop there. Take the first step and you'll persevere. Because all it takes is that first step. The joy will overcome your life and build a character in you that you will never understand, and how powerful it will help you. Yes, it's still gonna be there, but it doesn't have to steal your joy, because you know you have hope. And in case Angie and I, we have hope in Christ. And if you would love to learn more about that, feel free to message me, and I'd be happy to share more with you. There is hope in knowing joy, in finding joy in your pain, and persevering through that, so that you build a character in your own life that is a lot stronger than standing by yourself.